This is about panhandling. I'm not sure if we have hobos in America anymore. Hobos, tramps, bums, transients, whatever they were called, I think they're gone. And I think they coexisted with the railway system, and when the great interstate highways were built in the 1950s and suburban commuting America was born, that marked the end of the hobo era. Maybe. There was a certain romantic aspect to the hobo, at least in part. There was a hobo style of cooking, and except for the railroad bulls, no one had to be looking out for them, as they posed no threat. The hobos may be gone, but we certainly have homeless people. I don't think they're the same as the hobos, and whether or not they are not a homogeneous group. It is unusual for starters to define a group by what they do not have, that is, a home. It also means they have no family, no one is looking out for them. Some of them, no question, have mental health problems, and many of these are physically frail as well, the result of a lousy diet and no medical attention. For others, severe financial difficulties drop them through the social safety net and onto the streets. And some of the homeless, like the former hobos, chose a feral life. It has its hardships, for certain, but for independent and resourceful types, it also has its rewards. For one thing, it is a surefire way, as they say, of living off the grid. Some people do not want to be on that grid and would do anything to avoid it. It is a difficult and demanding life supplemented by shelters and soup kitchens for some and handouts for others. Which brings us to panhandling, a necessity for some and art for others. All urban areas have their share of panhandlers, and panhandlers have critics as well as supporters, each quite avid. Panhandlers are not a uniform group either. You have some people who are simply in need and are asking for help, and you have others who are grifters, and they feel no shame or concern in asking strangers for money, the ultimate cold call. I get hit up by panhandlers and moochers all the time. Some of them are direct. They just ask if you will give them some money. And some, regardless of your response, will ask God to bless you. Some of them dress up at their request a bit, asking for $1 so they can get something to eat. Others rely on the classic, I lost my wallet, will you give me some money so I can buy a bus ticket back to Dayton? I recall the finest approach ever put before me. It still puts me in a state of wonder as to where it came from and also where it went. I was sitting in the living room of my home, doing something, probably reading, maybe watching television. It was summer in the daytime, and the door was open so a breeze could blow through the screen door on the porch. And things were going along when I hear a cheerful hello. I looked over to see a young woman standing outside the screen door on my porch, looking in at me, waving her hand in greeting. Hello, I responded, not knowing what to expect. Magazine subscriptions, political campaign worker, Jehovah's Witness? I'm new in the neighborhood, she said. I'm staying with my grandmother, one street over, and I'm just going around, meeting people, getting acquainted. Oh, I said, that's a fine thing to do. And she continued, telling me how nice she was finding everyone to be, very open and accepting, and soon she would be looking for work. She wanted to save up as much money as she could because she was planning on doing some traveling. Oh, I said, by now completely sucked in, where do you plan to go? I'm going to England, she said immediately. I'm going there to study comedy with John Cleese. That startled me, and while I was recovering, she was talking about how excited she was at the prospect of studying comedy under such a master. I can see that, I said. What an opportunity. Congratulations. Thank you, she said. If you'd like to help me out with that, that's up to you, of course, but you know anything you'd like to contribute to my education would be greatly appreciated. I'll give it some thought, I said, suddenly elevated, potentially, to the status of patron, not really knowing what to say. Thanks very much, she said. I think I'll go back to my grandma's now. I'll come back to see what you decide. Bye. I never saw her again.